Okay, great. This is a fantastic turnout. We've got 5 or 6 online as well. Welcome to November's full stack community. Yeah, we've got Gary Dillon talking to us today about licensing, and then we've got a short presentation by Luke and my team about how we do licensing. We're a bit worried that we might not be doing it the right way, but that's all up for discussion. So that's what we've got lined up.
Okay, right. So, yes, I'm here to talk to you about licensing, sort of. I'm going to shrink this box because I keep seeing myself. And apologies for the rest of you, you can't avoid looking at me for the most part. Right, okay, so you may have heard on the grapevine that there is an update to the Institute software policy. Now, I'm here today to kind of explain the whys, and as part of the first step in having a bit of a consultation with you folks, right? So I just want to be super clear here, right? I'm not coming in to impose anything. I'm hopefully going to make things make a bit more sense, a bit easier to navigate, and update what is actually quite an old policy that was very good for its time. And I really must emphasize that actually. I don't think any other institute bothered with a software policy as early as we do. And as coherent, it is still quite robust. It does have a couple of things in it that do mean that we have some challenges every now and again, but also the Tech Transfer Office and legal get quite a lot of questions around licensing because of those gaps. So I'm here to talk through some of those examples so you understand the why underpinning all this, and you can ask me questions. See any hands up, please shout. Yeah, I'm not there as well. Please. Hideous stuff. Okay, but before I go any further, so I sit in the translation office. I am a business development manager, but please don't get the wrong idea about that, right? I've come from a commercial world into a charitable one to fulfill charitable objectives, right? We're here to support innovation from the Institute to benefit people and society, okay? We're not profit driven. None of the metrics I have to fulfill involve making a buck, which is just as well. We're here for when a commercial route will be helpful in amplifying the impact, or sometimes when you need to pull a commercial lever for a charity. There are things like vaccine patents that are largely directed towards livestock in sub-Saharan Africa that we look after as placeholders, so we have control over it. That we are partnering with the Gates Foundation over, who will hopefully, when they've finished all their lovely trials, help us find really low cost to get into the hands of people who have almost no money. We're talking subsistence farming. No one's making a buck off that whatsoever. I have some patents in the US and the UK. So if it's useful for vaccinating tourists, we can cream a bit off the top of those to help subsidize those programs, right? But again, okay, so there's the background. And I've just waffled through that. Well practiced. So yeah, we're impact, not revenue driven. We also hardly ever license exclusively because we want everyone to pick it up and run with it, which is why you'll be familiar with the copyleft licenses, I hope. I'll talk some more about in a minute. And if it's not done openly, it's not fine. So again, we don't package stuff up secretly. There is no Coca-Cola recipe in the vault that we don't support here. So the standard approach, and this is kind of heavily implied in our existing software policy, but maybe not as explicit as it should be, and the Y is not one. So for those of you not aware, and hopefully you all are, copyright is the intellectual property right that you lot get from day one. Right? Your work as software authors is considered a work of art. You know, have a debate on what art is, but as far as the law goes, your code is art. That ownership of that art vests with the person creating it from day one. In your case, actually, the ownership then passes to the institute. Those employees, often the case. It's almost always happens, but it applies from day one. Not like a patent, don't have to pay money, don't have to send off for anything, just is, and is world. So our software policy on this basis, when we're making software available to the world, likes us to release it under GPL or AGPL terms. A couple of reasons for that. So where we're releasing openly, we want to show what's inside the box. We want people to use it in a relatively unrestricted manner. If they want to commercialize it, they can do, right? But then if they want to commercialize it and distribute it, there are a couple of hooks in there that basically mean you have to return the bits that you add on to the wider world. Yeah, and that's a way for us to, amplify the benefit and, hopefully make sure that everyone benefits from software in the long term. However, there are cases where companies can pull it in and never distribute it and use it. So AGPL is supposed to protect against software as a service a little bit. Actually, there's holes in it that you can get around that, so it's not very strong. But that, that's the deal. We have to be open to some degree. We leave a bit of wiggle room, so if someone wants to build something fabulous on top and then distribute, they have to open up the books, or they have to come to us for a while. Okay, and sometimes for something to be invested in and turned into a product, like patients, we will have a bit of give. We'll say you can have an alternative license. Okay, but those are the reasons, and it's not really explicitly laid out in the policy, but those are the underlying balances we strike between being open, being commercial, letting everyone have a crack. And I have just waffled through that, and again, I'm doing really well on it. The other nice thing about AGPL and GPL licenses, though, is that they will not let someone put in a malicious patent based on them and then basically do patent trolling where they wring money out of people mercilessly for no impact whatsoever. So we also like that. An automatic license patent is given. It's also the reason why we're probably switching to recommending the Apache 2 license as more of a more permissive license put on software that you might say put the MIT license on. The MIT licenses are very minimal and they don't necessarily block patent trolling, whereas the Apache 2 one does.
Will you talk more about Apache and MIT in the following slide?
Not in depth. I think I'll probably maybe leave that for following questions. All right. Do you want to hit me with it now?
No, that's Gary's happy.
Very simplistic understanding of MIT versus Apache 2 is that Apache 2 is essentially MIT, but when you've got with additional protection, you've got like a trademark attached to your product.
Oh yeah, there's some other bits.
But if you don't have any trademark or branding, what is the advantage of Apache 2 versus MIT?
So it also stipulates that if there's an underlying enabling patent that we have control of, you get a license. So it basically it undermines somewhat someone putting a patent over the top of it, releasing it freely, and then when someone picks it up and goes, great, thanks very much for that, they can then get stung after the fact by someone who holds the patent and goes, oh, I see you're practicing that method. in a territory where there's a patent payment.
Well, exactly, you mean patent means software patent?
Hmm.
So those are only recognized in the US and even not in the EU.
Oh, they're recognised everywhere.
Oh, even in the EU?
Probably easier to get than the
Ah,
US at the
I know.
moment. So that's one of the reasons why we put that in there. And we may consider as a rarity a software patent in a very, very narrow sense. I'm not a big fan of them, not just because I think they're difficult to get, but also because I think they're kind of worthless in a lot of contexts, but that's a whole other. But yeah, our preferred licenses should always give someone some reassurance that if we hold the underlying IP, they get the right to use it without Sanger knocking on the door and going, I think you owe me, unless there's a really good reason. Okay, and now getting on to the actual reasons behind policy revamp. So just as an example, so it's actually very difficult to package software up for companies to pick up in a way that investors like to invest in. So if you want to do a whole genome analysis diagnostics company, one of the chief roadblocks you hit when you're getting it off the ground from investors is what's stopping someone else coming just picking all that stuff up because you put it out there in the wider world. So we can't do much about it now. That just is how it is, and it may be my personal opinion, probably why whole genome diagnostics is quite slow to take off, because investors want their return at the end of the day, and they get very, very twitchy about software only prospects, and that is an unfortunate fact about how capitalism works. None of us can do anything about that. However, to mitigate it going forward, the new policy, with an eye to addressing this, but keeping the balance between open and accessible, may be the case if you've got something big and you think it's going to have a huge impact, but it would warrant private money behind it to have that impact, then you come to the translation office and legal ask for an alternative license that will be, say, for academic use only. And then when the software goes out, everyone in the community can use it and build on it and play with it, but they have to come back to us to ask if they want to commercialize. That will very likely be like once in a blue moon. You know, it's not really what we're about. There better be a really good reason behind it. But we have real world cases where some former Sanger people want to set up a whole genome analysis company to improve cancer treatment, and it created because the investors just went, why would I put money behind something anyone can pick up anywhere in the world and just scoop them? Or worse, you know, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, you know, they're hitting the buffers on money. You know, Google looks like it's gonna, for the first time, take less than half the world's ad revenue, and they're panicking and scrabbling around for other places to put their money, one of which is health. And if you've got a startup going with a lovely idea, they're just going to steamroll and take software because they have to. So in those cases, we decided that we'll explicitly say, hey, there's an alternative rule. Here's what it looks like. You're not going to do closed source, but you can restrict people in a way that gives us leverage. So that's the reason for that one. So the other one is and similar. Venture capital just dislikes GPL full stop, which is kind of the point for us, because it does give us a bit of leverage. It's not always the case that GPL hands everything over. So this kind of to reiterate the point, but when we use GPL licenses, it's it's sort of viewed like a virus by a lot of big tech companies, and rightly so, because once it gets into code, that's it, they've lost control of it. But we can do something called dual licensing. So if they come to us, we still retain an element of control where we go, okay, you want to use it for a commercial purpose and distribute it, right? We will give you an alternative license to GPL. Let you do that so you can invest, you can build on top of it, and you don't have to open it to the wide world. But usually it'll be non-exclusive, or it'll be exclusive for a limited period of time, just giving them enough buffer and a head start for it to go. But again, in these cases, the solution would be potentially an academic only license, or maybe it's just fine. We just have an alternative commercial license alongside the GPL, because you don't just do one license and over. You can license your code in under several different so that's just to make that a bit clearer. Now, the other one for us is what to do about big collaborations with other institutes where someone outside of Sanger is contributing to our code base. Always a fun one. And principally, actually, just from a publication point of view, it can cut across our right, does cut across our right to publish if our code contains a collaborator's contribution, right? We should have an overarching collaboration in place that makes it clear that the code they contribute is either assigned to us, so we have control of it and therefore a right to publish GPL or whatever license we select. It should make it clear that they have license back to their code, so we're not taking it away from them. Or if they can't, make themselves comfortable with that position, then we have a two-way license so that we both have the right to publish and license. And that avoids us getting into horrible legal issues down the road when someone comes to us and says, do I really have the right to use it? If the code's contaminated, we don't have the whole say on what can go out, and that can be a big problem as time goes on and access to cloud computing and web collaboration grows. It's a bigger problem. Right? It wasn't an issue back in the day when we were the big kid on the block, and very few people could run code on their own systems comparable to us. But now we've got people coming in from the outside. We just need to make it clear who owns, so we have the proper right to publish on the street. And I'll send these slides around that. And that comes up quite a lot, and particularly when someone says, oh, we've got all these internal pointers. It would be a massive security flaw if we just dumped it out of the web. My answer is, okay, fine, wrap it into a collaboration so it's not external distribution, or we can close source it for those individual cases if no one's contributing and you need to, say like the GSU, send code rounds to your collaborators for that. So, because that is distribution. The important thing is not to fall foul of our own. So that will hopefully be better explained in the new policy as well. And now the big sticky one that is quite comes up every now and again, and sometimes could land people in hot water. Not because they're malicious with it, but sometimes people just don't give good enough guidance. So one example I had, it will remain nameless, someone leaving Sanger wanted to start their own software enterprise, shall we say, and wanted to use some code from within Sanger to do it. Some code, an awful lot. And on their way out the door, they told various other people working on it to apply. No, not really. That is an incredible conflict of interest issue, because that basically says you should open all that code up so I can then make money out of it on my way out the door. And we caught that, you know, in time and had somewhat awkward discussion around it. But things like this should be clear in the policy so we don't put people in moral jeopardy, right? Should be clearer who signs off on license variation, who has the choice of that, to protect you folks as much as anything else. But also, as a corollary to that, our funders are increasing for things to be released under certain licenses. It's being recorded, so I'll mind what I say here. But the Chan Zuckerberg Institute, for example. Now, were I a cynical person, and I am, I would say that that is a great pump priming for Facebook's next venture, right? So everything done to their funding terms where you can release it has to go out under MIT. Now, who's to say if that's because Facebook could, if it takes off, just pick up that code, barrel $1 billion into it, and basically wipe out all the competition through being a late start of a fast mover, right? We also endeavour to explain this as an issue within the software policy because it is more and more the case that funders have expectations that we must accommodate, and it may mean that we ourselves have to make, or you may have to make decisions about whether you accept that funding source on a particular project or whether you want to hide stuff. So really important core pipeline, software development, ideally, probably best kept GRL only as much as possible. So we retain control and we have to say. I would say that I am the perfect manager, but bear it in mind, okay? It is your baby as well as the institute. Think about how you want it. And therefore, you know, use money and use T's and C's to apply. Right, hopefully I'm getting through this. But more than anything else, the reason why this policy needs updating is I get at least a dozen times a year questions of what license should I apply? And it invariably causes mild panic to major fretting amongst people when I say, well, what libraries have you incorporated into that code? And they suddenly realize they're being hit by a whole bunch of GPL terms or Mozilla terms, and these things may not mesh up easily. And it would be better for people if they were more aware earlier. I don't think the policy is necessarily going to accomplish that because no one sits down and really going to read that software policy. But as part of the policy, we're hoping to have flowcharts and explainers that will make it easier and forewarn people, and it will help them choose. Say you've got a GPL library you want to put from R, they're almost always. But you spot another library that tells you, cool. Actually, one of those will determine absolutely that you must apply another GPL license. The other one will give you a bit of freedom because it's intended to be used as library code and not cascade down stuff. So again, it's to help with that process to make it a bit clearer. We'll have a table at the moment, and you folks are all going to be my guinea pig to take a look at and say whether that's clear or not to you. And we'll we'll hopefully have a slide deck synopsis that's easy for someone to go down and understand housing wise, so they don't come to the end of their project and they've got 40 different libraries being called or something, and then have a meltdown because I've suddenly gone, well, that one doesn't work with that one, and etc., which is deeply unpleasant for most people. Anyway, so last but not least, the whole idea is better guidance. Also make it clearer where to go. The original license was really good, but it doesn't explain a lot of stuff. It also links out to resources that are maybe not as balanced as they should be, but also not necessarily as current as they should be. So it's important for the Institute to put its stamp over everything in there and make sure it has good control of it, rather than giving the outside world the impression that we are wholly with the free software, for example. But also give you the route, make it clear who you need to talk to when you have questions. Licensing is primarily illegal and a commercial question, actually, so probably wasn't so great that it directed everyone back into IT to ask for things. And yeah, last but not least, to fill in the gap, it's to make it clear that there are alternative routes rather than putting halfway through GitHubs out there for collaboration and all the rest of it. It's there to make it clearer why we do what we do and make it clear what the commercial incentives are that we retain, so we can get things off the ground if they are a commercial opportunity, and to introduce a little bit more commercial leverage in there as well, not least because we, if something is a commercial opportunity, it's always very disheartening when someone comes to me and says, Kaizen picked up my software package, I'm not getting a penny of it, and it's like, it's kind of as intended. That's what we do as an institute, let anyone pick it up and run with it. But in some cases, if someone is making a megabuck out of it, it would be nice to give a little bit more value to the institute. And with that, that's me done. Hopefully that wasn't too dry, it made sense. If not, you can harangue me now over the next couple of months. I will send this around and hopefully the actual proposed policy has made the rounds. I'm looking, no, it will make the round. But yeah, the only thing I would ask. No, okay. The only thing I would ask is I very much want your feedback and see it with the grain. If you could organise someone to collect the feedback though, so I don't have about 50 individual emails going over the same thing or 50 different. If it just comes in one hit, that helps a lot. And that's it. Thank you.
Good.
Most important thing you can hit it.
Does anyone have any questions for Gary?
If the aspect of sometimes granting like an academic only license so that people can get social benefit, but also retain its ability to commercialize in the future and capture more of that. Would that be academic or kind of non-profit? So I kind of wondered about a lot of cases like charities, NGOs, various kind of organization structures that are
That's a good question. And the answer to that is it can be. So the license can be whatever we choose it to. We tend to stick with academic only because it literally is just a line that says you can use this for academic use. And that's great because it keeps the legal bit simple. But with a license, it's whatever we like. So if you feel strongly, and that's important, that can go in there as well. The only thing I would say is that the academic only license is liable to be very, very limited. Like we're thinking, 6 months to a year, just enough to get it off the deck if there is something there. What we normally, it's like anything commercial, say for a patent, I have a patent, we'll go, okay, we'll file a patent, we'll take a punt on it. No idea if it's going anywhere. We then have about a year to, do our own homework, find people who might pick it up as a license. And then if it doesn't go anywhere, if additional data hasn't been added, things like that, then we'll go, okay, it's had its chance. You know what, it's better out there for the community unhindered, and that's fine, we let it go. It'll be similar to software, right? Have you a compelling reason, right? Do you think no one will pick this up to a sufficient degree to actually get it out there and turn it into a diagnostic? In which case, yes, okay, we'll do 6 months to a year, and maybe there'll be an extension process, or we won't set it, right? Doesn't go anywhere, right? We're just going to default back. And also, I would say, at the back of my mind, and it'd be interesting to have your feedback on, is whether after a project is essentially live, once it's stopped becoming the sign and become a legacy file, actually should the license switch from a GPL license to an Apache or an MIT license? So then, it's out there, it's potentially dead, but anyone can pick it up and work with it. And, they don't have to keep coming back to us for something that we may not know about. That was very.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how to speak well to the question you posed, but that definitely makes sense in terms of if a non-profit wanted to benefit, or like the government, for example, wanted to use it. The academic license would only be for, say, a year. So like that, at that point, it's up for grabs for anyone. So that sounds good.
Cool.
So on the topic of licensing, who is allowed to relicense a code base? People who own copyright code base.
So to license, you must have either ownership of the copyright or a right to license it. So bit of finesse there. So if you wrote code whole cloth from scratch and it didn't call any libraries that you hadn't done the same with, you'd have absolute control over how that was licensed, and you could choose to do that any way you want, right? If you write the code and you call, say, a GPL library, okay, then you only have the right to license GPL, because while the bit you wrote, you own copyright for, the contaminating GPL code restricts how you can license. So you sort of have permission to use their code in your creation, but they restrict how you can license your code, even though you own that code. And it creates all sorts of fun situations whereby if someone wants a commercial license to our code, we go, yeah, you can have it for this bit, but look, there's this GPL stuff in there that you can't have, right? So, you're going to need to put that in if you want to implement it and really comply.
I'm going to make some code bases we write on our own, and I'm not touching anything GPL related, so we find using MIT for that. So everything holds the GRE copyright for the policy. Now, if you've got external contributor adding code, or currently we not pay very much attention to copyright, just keep copyright GRL. In theory, should there be a CLA, contributor license agreement, where they explicitly relinquish their right ownership or whatever the right term is, and then so how to make sure that this is done properly, so that we retain control of the code base and we're able to take those decisions.
Yeah, so the only way to do it is have some alternative agreement in place that makes it clear. So you've heard of the contingent worker agreement. So anyone who accesses our systems will often have to sign an agreement that says, while you're working on our projects and our systems, we own that code, run it by your current employer, and sign here, please. So that's one method. That's like the least friction method a really big project, you probably should have a collaboration agreement that makes it clear who can do what with the intellectual contribution.
But it means registering all the contributors in Workday and HR.
So it doesn't have to all be done in HR. So it can just be a governing agreement, basically says your people working on our stuff, that we still have the right to publish and license, right?
The same way there's a material transfer agreement for the
Yeah,
applicant. So there's also an
Exactly
agreement.
like that. And it is belt and braces, so don't worry if you've got legacy projects or things that are ongoing. It's more forward thinking, we'll sort out as and when it matters. A lot of the time, it's not going to bubble up as an issue. So I'm not asking anyone to instantly go back and put a ton of agreements in place. It's more rolling forward, so we do it the right way. As we do more and more, we go that bit later.
Yes, we've got a question on Mike from Sendu.
Yeah. So in my group, our default for quite a long time has just been when we write new software, it's MIT and we don't even think about it. So my questions are, A, should we change that? B, should we go back and change all our existing MIT to something else? And C, even if the answer to that is no, we haven't been checking the licenses of all the libraries that we use. So do we have an obligation now to go back through everything, check everything, and relicense?
So I would say it's quite low risk. So don't feel obliged to go back and do a ton of homework on those things and cause yourself a lot of admin headache. I would say for projects going forward, GPL is the default for the Institute, and that's probably the best one to pick. And more often than not, if you discover you've got code that places restrictions on how you can license, chances are it's going to be a GPL license. So I start there by default, so it saves you some headache down the line, and just check things as they come in. For stuff that's already out in the wild, we can't kind of take it back. We can just do a mea culpa in the unlikely event that someone comes, and I don't think Free Software Foundation is going to come and monster us for any of this. So don't worry about that, but bear it in mind more going forward to save their headache. Because if something does take off, it's better that you know what's gone into the recipe than ahead of time than have to sort it out later. Does that sound like an okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. So is it any particular version or subset of GPL? Like what is the standard thing to be using?
So I think the most restrictive is AGPL, and that's the one that retains enough leverage. So basically standard GPL says if you distribute the software, then you have to make the code available under a GPL license open source. AGPL says use over a network counts as distribution. So if you essentially provide that software over an internet connection to a customer, that's distributed. And it's just meant to, count some of the software as a service stuff to avoid people getting around the principles of the GPL license. So I would start there, but AGPL or GPL is fine. The Institute, like I say, the idea is not that we're too prescriptive. It's just that we say, here's the default position, here's your options, and here's the why. And there'll be latitude within that for you to pick, but I would recommend it.
And is there any, basically the idea is we just want as many people to use the software as possible. Primarily that would be like other people in academic institutes. So is there any reason that, any academic place would not want to use GPL software from other people?
Mostly because they'll be thinking about making a buck off it. Is the answer. So not everywhere is, as impact driven as we are. Some places are more profit driven. Some universities view their translation activities as money making exercises and have them as cost centers. And in those cases, they may happily close source software for money in a way that we wouldn't. It's also possible that they have a more chillaxed attitude to whether people involved in tobacco research or selling weapons, they might have you'd be surprised. They may have a bit more of a relaxed attitude to that than we do. I'm not giving a license to anything to British American Tobacco or Raytheon. Like, I don't care what they want to use it for. We won't, as an institute, give those kind of commercial licenses, but that's not everyone. And then it will make a difference.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Anything else for Gary?
You normally match the slide colour to what you're wearing today. So I think it matched up really well.
No, this is entirely by accident. I'm talking to Danaher. They come in, they want to talk. So I put the fancy clothes on today. Normally I'm a bit scruffier and join the union.
No, it works very well.
Thank you. I will bring the waistcoat and put that back. 3/4 of it.
Fantastic. Excellent. So if there's anything that you want the sort of wider group to look over and comment, if you do you want to send it to me and I can then
absolutely. That works for you folks.
Yep.
I'm never thrilling documents, policy documents, right? So don't, and we will probably reorder it as well. This is the first draft. Don't feel the need to read every bit in detail if you don't want to. If you could take a look at the tables where we advise on the sort of different default licenses, that would be really helpful. And there is a flow chart as well. There'll be a PowerPoint with it. Take a look at that if it makes sense. It's great. Again, just to emphasize, this is not something I want to just impose on one. It is here for you to influence and to say, hey, this reads terribly, what the hell? Can you make it clearer? That creates the whole thing. Cool.
Fantastic.
I'll let you talk about interesting.
Thank you very much. Lou, we thought we'd have a complete license day. So Luke's got a quick presentation. This is about how we in our teams, not what licenses we use, but how we specify that the code uses any licenses.
Right. So
Yeah, so this
All
would
right,
be,
yep.
so I basically ruined your whole meeting
No,
by
no.
introducing licenses.
Well,
That's terrible.
well, this is gonna be a very quick, very quick talk about what we do within Tolp. Does that work? No?
If you do it on your laptop,
Oh,
I did
God, yeah,
earlier.
sorry.
Yeah, I was logged in, so
And I feel quite woefully underprepared now for this one afterwards. There just seems to be a lot of nuance when it comes to licensing and things like that. So I think, well, speaking of myself and the team, we've probably got some things to go back and think about potentially. So we are here. So I did like a little bit of a preamble beforehand. So in the intro, so just talking about what licensing is, different types of licensing, I might just skip over that now. I can share the slides, so you can see them on there if you want to. But I'll talk mainly about Tolpi and what we do as well. So yeah, there's things like license, why it matters, types of licenses, and then back to our licensing choice. So currently we have, well, we're using MIT. And after this talk and when these things go live, we may have to rethink that. We're not too sure, or maybe think about it more in our next projects. So we don't worry too much because we are a little bit like Sendu, and not thinking about the other packages that we use and how they interact with other licenses and things like that. So we went with MIT, and I expect, I haven't actually spoken to others like Matt, you probably know more than me about this, but it allows a lot of flexibility. But with the flexibility, there comes some bad things. So it's not so good for legal protections. And if we want a little bit of a kickback, if we work on this project and someone takes it from us, we want a little bit of a kickback for that. So yeah. So what we actually use in the team is called reuse. Reuse. So essentially, as they say here, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to walk through each of the steps and how we've implemented them. But down here, I've put a quote from the site directly. We solve a fundamental issue that free software licensing has at the very source. What license is a file licensed under, and who owns the copyright? So on every single one of our files, we have a license and copyright. So step 1, we need to make sure that we choose the correct license. So we've chosen MIT, whether that's the right choice or the wrong choice, it doesn't really matter. It works with any license. So first thing, you specify a license directory and you put in all of your licenses in there. And I've just completely copied the writing that we have in that MIT.txt, and that's just the MIT license there. You can have more than one license, you can have as many licenses as it's used within the code base. So once you define those, you move on to step 2. So you've added copyright information in bulk, as in here exactly what that MIT license is, and you can do the same for the others. And then here, so we add our copyright information. So there are quite a few different ways that you can do this. The first one, the simplest, is just having a copyright at the top of the file. So right here, I've got a TSX file, so using JavaScript, and it's just within the code comment. The second one, and this works with any, so if it was Python, it would just have hashes there instead. So the next one is you can bulk specify the licenses. So at the top there, we're bulk specifying that everything inside of our chart folder is licensed under 2023 Genome Research Limited, and the license is FD. So this is within the .reuse file, folder name, and it's inside a .dep5 file. I don't know what .dep5 stands for, but it's in there. This has now been deprecated, so we now use reuse.toml. So we'll need to look at updating that in the future. And then another way you can update these licenses as well is, so for something like the icons you can see on the left-hand side, so we've got icons, we've got images and PNGs. We essentially just copy the name of that file and add .license on the end of it. And then inside that we have, it's just a text file that tells you exactly what, well, the exact same thing as in the one above. So Genome Research Limited, and then MIT license specifying. So that's step 2. So 2 out of 3 at the moment, and now we need to confirm the reuse specification. So there are a few ways that you can do that, but the way that we've implemented it is within our CI/CD pipeline. So we create a task for linting our licenses within our main GitLab CI file. And that is the first step within our GitLab pipeline. So normally if the pipeline fails within like the first 8 seconds, we know that we've missed out a license there. The good thing that I found with Tolpi and working with them is that we've got an SDK that you can do all these pre-checks beforehand. So things like your linting and your testing, everything within that SDK. So within our Toll SDK, if you type in tollint -- type license, it will do the exact same command as your GitLab CI/CD pipeline will do without actually committing anything beforehand. So once you've done that, so once you've uploaded your code, and you'll get an output like this. So this will tell you whether step 3 has been successful and whether you are reuse compliant. So at the top, we've got success. It's telling me that 119 files all have copyright information and all have the license information. And then the one below, that gives us a failure, and it will tell us exactly where the problems are. Can't actually see it on my screen because it's broken. But yeah, I can see here that we've got 2 files that are missing specification info. Actually, no, it's at the top there. So package-lock.json and package.json. If we create license files for those by adding .license at the end, turn them into a text file, and then adding those in, that will then pass. So yeah, that's your 3 steps to being reuse compliant. So it doesn't matter what license you use, it should work for any of them. And then in conclusion, so decide what license option is best for you and your team, which came from slides 2 and 3, which I kind of skipped over. And then you just need to implement steps 1, 2, and 3 to become reuse compliant. So Reuse has a really good FAQ, and they talk you through licensing as well as how to use their software. And then there's also another link down here that goes into even more detail about how to write really good copyright statements, and also why you should or shouldn't use multiple years within that copyright statement. So it's a good read.
What do they think?
It's best just to use it from the initial creation date. They think, I don't know what the Institute thinks, I don't know.
It's probably.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that is everything there. Questions?
The interest is when you've got multiple licenses and code base, because then you can define which path is covered by which license,
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
No, but that's the question.
yes.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm very new to this. So yeah, that's right.
So any license you mention, either at the top of a file or as a bulk one, you've got to have in that licenses folder. You can't mention anything. I mean, you can make up your own license as long as you call it the same in both places.
Oh, there's also be a SPDX entires.
Yes. So there's an SPDX identifier with a license name which has to match something in the license folder, but you can have a different one on every single file with you.
Licenses that require a boilerplate. You still have your reuse boilerplate, plus license boilerplate, and then the code there, the code both together.
I think we don't do the boilerplate because it's all our own code. If that makes any sense. I wondered that in the past, if you have like mandatory boilerplate, like some places say you have to have the Apache preamble, or preamble with the Apache boilerplate, as you say. But first of all, we don't have any Apache license code in the actual repositories themselves. Second of all, it would be all of our code anyway. So my understanding is we can do whatever we want. But yeah,
It's easy as long as you use MIT because there's no boilerplate required.
You can still put whatever you want in
I've
the
done
comments, but yeah, it's just those two.
You have to,
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the moment, there's nothing there because it's not required.
You don't necessarily need to put in on the boilerplate from the license if it's a well-known license, the name, a link out. If you're feeling particularly twitchy about it, probably okay.
I just remember something that's very more relevant to you than Luke. Comment I heard about the current license is that the current sort of policy, saying sort of policy, is that it apparently saying year 1 - year 2 is not a standard thing. So recommendation solar policy is to have year one, comma, year 1 plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, explicitly list all the years in the interval. Is it still the case in the new policy?
No. Is the short answer to that. I mean, after the initial release, actually, the copyright is usually life plus 70 years anyway. So like, it's not clear to me what the smaller additions year after year are really, adding into the bargain. If we're still using that code, 140 plus years potentially, I'm gonna worry what's happened to bioinformatics development, and B, I'm gonna be very dead to prepare. So yeah, I don't.
That also means that we don't need to bump the year per year.
Yeah, it probably.
We got some files created in 2022, say copyrights GI 2022. It's we don't do it, but where we were before, we had to run script every year. We scan every branch of every push story and update the copyright license to the new year.
Okay, I need to go back and check what our draft has, but I'm pretty damn sure. That's much more like that.
The interesting thing is presumably when you originally wrote the thing anyway, so just automatically update the date every single year, whether or not you touch the code is didn't.
Yeah, pretty much. And if anything, might conceivably open. You wouldn't want to do, although it's still lifetime plus 70, so I don't think anyone's not.
Cool. Any other questions?
Can I do that really annoying, not a question, but a comment?
Sure.
That warmed my heart. That was great. I'm actually, that looks like a really good way to just check that this stuff is done. And much better than when I was writing code manually. And it
Cool.
sucks. But that's really good.
Positive. Thank you. Any other questions for me?
Yeah, that's really good. If you've got just one license you're using, how does it compare with, say, putting like a license file at the root of the repo and looking to understand more when you'd use that approach? When you would it? That makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer.
I can take the question if you want.
Yeah, I can give
You repeat first before you.
Yeah, so I guess so some of the practices you whack a kind of license for MD file, text file, root to repo, and that is licensed before the repo. And I think that's what I've done in the past, but I don't know if A, that is valid, and B, what would the other benefits of using this approach in the use case if you've just got one license?
One license, I'd say the benefits aren't marginal, but it means you don't forget to add headers. It means you can verify that all the files have headers. But if you don't necessarily want it to have headers, and you want to just say this whole repository is literally every single last line of code is under this license, I can see it not being that helpful or not being that great utility.
But that's only if you
Yeah,
only use one license to replace changes. Then
yeah. Then
so if you just have the headers in beforehand, then
it's
saving yourself in the future.
room for expansion if you have more licenses, or like if you have to vendor in some third-party code or something. Yeah.
And I would say it's always fun when someone incorporates someone else's, and they've got something like that on there. And if there's no, mixed licenses in one of the files that they're using doesn't have a header and it's not clear,
Yeah.
you actually don't have the right to use that code.
Yeah.
Which is less than ideal. So it is just best practice in case you start needing to change, because while it's clear, it's fine, but someone's got to keep.
Okay, great stuff.
That's really good to know as well. Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
I'll just press stop on the.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
They'll be fat.